Ready to go?
Ready.
Cool. Let's go. So we have Danny back for volume 25, round 2.
25. How exciting.
I know, it's crazy. I think it's nearly 20 since we last did it because you were number 6.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem that far away.
I know.
You've been pumping them out.
I've been trying my best. One of my goal for the year was to do 12. And I was going to
Doubled it.
Yeah, I doubled it. I know. I can give up now. I was going to do 1 a month. That was my goal. So
Well and truly exceeded expectations.
I know. And it was actually cool to listen to our first one. I was listening to it on the way in just to kind of get a bit of a vibe of what we talked about last time because I can remember it, but just so we didn't double up points. And I've been working on some things, so hopefully I could hear the difference in things that I was saying.
Oh, yeah. A little bit of improvement.
Yeah.
Yep.
I started to do some like enunciation drills and some tongue twisters and things like that. So
She sells seashells by the seashore.
Yeah. There's a lot of them. I can't remember. I stopped for a bit. But then even like there's these weird exercises. This will get taken out of context. There's weird exercises you can do with your tongue to help how you pronounce words.
Okay.
Yeah.
Progressive overload.
Yeah. And I think it's made a difference. So yeah. Cool. What's new with you?
What's new with me? Since the last time, 12 episodes ago, I think I've done the same old online coaching. Mm-hmm. I competed in a weighted calisthenics comp, which was cool. Technically, it's called street lifting.
Street lifting? That's cool.
I came second.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Thanks.
That's really cool.
Yeah. That was unexpected.
And how does the format for that go? What's the criteria? What do you have to do?
So for girls, you do a 1 rep max of either a ring muscle up or a bar muscle up.
Okay.
And I chose rings.
Yep.
And then you do a 1 rep max of either chin ups or pull ups. And I chose chin ups. Mm-hmm. And then a 1 rep max dip. Mm-hmm. And the very last one is a 1 rep max squat.
Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds like a really cool competition.
It's fun. It's literally, when I was thinking about doing it, I was a bit, I haven't really trained properly. And then a few of my friends were like, that's literally all you train. And I do want to take it seriously towards the end of the year. So I thought this would be just a good way to feel it out and to see the structure without having the pressure of like wanting to PB every lift.
Yeah. There's a couple things in there that's actually quite good talking points, but in terms of building and developing strength. But where does the squat come from in it? In terms of, that's not like calisthenics.
No. I wish I knew, but I think they always include like a leg component when it comes to calisthenics comps. So say you have an endurance comp, which is just as many sets and reps as possible. I've done that before and it was like just as many bodyweight squats. Mm-hmm. And I think I've also seen people do pistol squats. Mm-hmm. So I guess with street lifting, they do squat. I don't know why they don't do like deadlift instead or something else. But it's just, I'm not going to question it.
Yeah,
Squat.
Yeah. It actually sounds quite cool and something that I might be interested in because I'm not a big fan of the deadlift. So
yeah, you'd kill it.
I do like dips. I do like chin-ups. I'm not very good at muscle-ups, but I do like a squat. So
I think guys can only do bar muscle-ups.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. I have a bad experience of doing a ring muscle-up, so I'm not even going to... Did I tell you about that last time?
I want to say no.
Oh, so funny. It was when I just started at Fitness Playground, and I don't know if you remember when I was talking last time, I was telling you that I did 100 pull-ups and 100 push-ups every single day.
Yes.
Yeah. And so just by doing so many pull-ups, I got good at obviously doing a pull-up, but then I wasn't good at muscle-ups, but I had the ability to kind of get up over the bar.
Yep.
So I'd done it once or twice on a bar. Actually, I know I used to be able to rep it out actually. But then I stopped doing as many chin-ups and pull-ups because Chris Mavros just crushed my hopes.
I remember you touching on this.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just fresh in my memory because I was listening to it this morning. Anyway, so my other mate, Chris Bate, who used to work at Fitness Playground at the time, he was doing ring muscle ups one day, and I was like, to me, it seemed like it was harder because I've had so many shoulder injuries and so much shoulder instability. And he's like, no, it's actually easier because you can, move the rings around a little bit better.
And dip your way out of it if you pull too low.
Yeah. And so he showed me how to do it, and it was a bit more of a kipping because he kind of did like a bit of a CrossFit vibe training. So it was a bit more of a kipping muscle up. Anyway, I got up, and after a few attempts, got up, and I was just so excited that I got to like, what do you call it? Like the turnover.
Like the transition.
The transition. And then I went to dip, and because I didn't have much shoulder stability, I just pressed and my left arm just went missing.
Oh my God.
And so I was like as high as the rings could be in Surrey and just fell.
I know exactly what you mean, because I think the failing point is when it's too far out.
Yeah, and just...
And with the momentum of swinging as well.
So I essentially just fell from the roof of Surrey Hills. I've had some accidents in there.
I remember you telling me about your handstand one.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're still here.
I am still here.
You're still alive and kicking. It's fine.
True. So it's a 1 rep max, so weighted muscle up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. How heavy did you get on that?
Just a disclaimer, I've never trained weighted muscle ups. Like I fully came in expecting to scratch it.
Yeah.
But I ended up getting 15 kilos.
Nice.
It felt good. So I'm keen to see if I can really get a good PB in October.
Yeah. That's so cool. And was yours on the rings or bar?
Rings. I think most girls pick rings. There were maybe a couple of girls that did bar. But I think the reason why they give girls the option of doing rings is just because like strength discrepancy between ring and bar for girls is quite large.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. What was your back squat?
My back squat was 120.
Nice.
Yeah, I've done better.
Well, last time you said you were working towards a double bodyweight back squat.
Yeah, I'm not close.
We've
fully changed. Well, so I was fully... You spotted my 120 for 2.
Yeah.
So that was a high bar. That felt really good. I think I'd sort of gone into a little bit of a plateau. But I figured since competing, if that's a goal, I should kind of try to give myself the best advantages possible. Mm-hmm. So we've put a belt on, we put the shoes on, we're going to low bar, and we're going to see if I can do it.
This is hanging around Rob too much. He's done the same thing with Mel.
I saw. Because as I started doing it, even my depth is like not as low anymore.
Oh, no. We'll have to change your top 10 exercises because that was your second exercise.
A high bar.
Yeah, high bar. Full squat.
But I'm like too desperate at this point to reach this goal. So I'm going to do it. And then I can just clean it up later.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate there is there's a lot of different ways to do a lot of different things, and if the goal is to compete and get the biggest squat like a low bar with a belt and not full squat is probably going to be the best way to do it.
Yeah Plus I lost by 17 kilos between first and second. So I'm going to need some more weight. Yeah
But when you were doing the powerlifting comp, what did you get to?
137.
So you would have got that was the difference. You did 120.
Literally, yeah. I was like a lot heavier back then, though.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
But also to come back to how you said you weren't training for the competition in terms of you didn't. So
I decided 2 weeks before.
Yeah. I think it's a really, really good thing it's awesome to have goals and have that like, cool, that's the competition you're working for. But one thing I noticed when I was doing the powerlifting that everything else just started to get pushed to the wayside because I was like, cool, I'm doing this powerlifting comp. And then I just started to just focus on
the powerlifting. Fair enough.
Which it was a good experience. If I do it again, and Rob and I have spoke about this before, because we were having like a similar approach, we were going to do the powerlifting comp, so we'll train really, really hard for that. As I got closer to the comp, I just started to not enjoy my training as much. And I know that's probably not necessarily the thing for you because the street lifting is predominantly what you love. But being able to show up and still do really, really well shows you that all the training that you are doing still equips you to be able to do that, in terms of you might not have peaked for it, but if you're, not just doing the the low rep stuff, but you're doing lots of 5s and 6s and whatever it might be, you're
Yeah.
still going to be able to express that strength. And I think because it's a cool point, because I think people, when trying to express a lot of strength or, get a 1 rep max, they will focus so much on the ones
Just the
and
1
two.
RM?
Yeah, the 1s and 2s. But in reality, strength is built at the 3s, 5s, 6s, 8s that hurt more. But
Definitely the 8s. Oh my God.
the 8s hurt more.
Yeah.
But that's actually where strength is built. It's just expressed at the high intensities and the low reps.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I noticed that when I started to drop the reps as I went through to the powerlifting comp, I didn't feel as strong as I did when I was doing the sets of 5.
I get you. I think but do you also think that could just be the feeling of doing 1 versus the feeling of a set of 5?
In terms of, how do you mean?
In terms of feeling strong.
Well, I know that so I got up to a 5x5 at 140 on back squat.
Oh shit, yeah.
And so that would have put me at a projection of like 170, so that would give me probably like an 8 or 9 RM for 140. And then going into the comp, I couldn't do 5 at 140.
Yeah, right.
Even though that my reps were going down and the weights were going up, but just kind of in terms of, there's definitely like a fatigue element to it. But like if we look at what actually, strength and conditioning and sports science, like they'll do like accumulation phases.
Yeah.
Like good coaches will have you do accumulation phase, which
Yes.
you've probably done a lot with Rob.
Yeah.
And you're doing 5 sets, you get up to doing like, what were you doing, 5 sets of 6 on back squat recently, weren't you? Or
I
something
don't
like
think
that.
I've ever done 5. Oh no, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. That sucks, but that is actually what gets you closer to that strength
Yes, because it is like, if you're able to add a rep, you're more likely to be able to do heavier weight at a lower.
goal. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And it's safer as well too, because the further you go, or the lower you go down the rep ranges, they're heavier the weights get. So there's more potential for injury as the reps get lower.
Yeah.
And that's why if you have a look at like a lot of programs that build a lot of strength, like 5x5 or, 4x6, like that's how they build the strength. It's the accumulation of the volume that actually allows you to build it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then you express it at the lower reps.
Yeah, because the 1s and the 2s are more about like CNS
Yeah.
versus muscular,
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah.
And then your 4s, 5s, 6s are, yes, obviously CNS, but like muscular side of things.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the thing. So it's good to practice the low reps, but just what I guess it's a byproduct of your training of doing a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Will allow you to express the higher potentials for strength.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, which is cool. So like one thing I want to do when I go into next time is I'll still train for a comp, but instead of having a period where I do low reps, I'll do some low reps, but I'll still keep the high reps in there, because that's kind of what keeps it ticking along and getting stronger.
And you'd probably just have more fun if you didn't enjoy that part of it.
Yeah. It's fun to do a 1 RM, but like you said, when you do your powerlifting,
Weeks on end.
it's just like, oh, fuck, I just want to do 5 now. We always want what we don't have. And
It's
and
always
kinda-
like that.
Yeah, human beings. Cool. So you got a comp coming up in October, you said?
October, yes.
Excellent. That's very exciting.
It is. It'll be good. I think also because it's in Sydney, whereas the last one was in Melbourne, I think it'll just be easier because then I don't have to worry about the whole flying and trying to see if I need to settle into routine and
Yeah.
all of that, which is not hard, but just I think when you're trying to perform your best, you just want to be in a comfortable environment where nothing's changing as much,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, can eat the same food, you can sleep in the same bed.
Yeah.
like, all that sort of stuff. That's really, really cool. Okay, so let's get on to what you do with your clients, as we chatted a little bit before off air. So you work online now, which is
Do.
really, really cool. It's over a year now that you've been doing that. isn't it?
Yeah. So my last day at Fitness Playground, when it was called Fitness Playground, was April 30th.
Cool. Yeah.
So it's been a full year on my own. No little random classes to pay my bills.
Yeah.
It's just all online.
Yeah. How's that been?
It's been such a process. Like, I've been doing online coaching since 2019 alongside face-to-face. And when online coaching started to get bigger and I realized that was what I wanted to do, I thought, cool, I'll just drop to face-to-face and my life will be the same. I'll just do less face-to-face and more online. Nothing changes. My mindset will be the same. I'm not expecting this massive transition. And this, I guess the entire year kind of showed me how big the change really was in terms of, I guess, the time I had and how to better use the time, how to scale my business better for more online clients. Even like mentally, there was such a difference between me rocking up to work and just always being around people to now working online and in my home.
Yeah.
Like I used to think I was a massive introvert, and because I would work with people all the time that I needed a break from that. Whereas like now, because I'm so alone, I'm the biggest extrovert ever. And I'm just like actively trying to make sure that I've got that balance of like seeing people throughout the week so that I don't go like crazy and have, reasons to leave my house. So yeah, a lot of changes, I think, to kind of find sustainable working practices.
Yeah, for sure. Particularly working at home as well too. Do you have like a separate office or in your home, or it's just like in your living space?
Technically I do, but I always just work on the dining table because it's in the sun.
Ah, fair.
So I like it better.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting one. I found that in the first lockdown. I think we definitely do get tired. If you're doing face-to-face PT, you get tired from interacting with people.
Yeah.
And because it's not even just like the conversation that you're having, we are focusing on a lot of different things within a 40-minute session or whatever it might be.
And it's not just an interaction. It's like an interaction at your most professional, switched on self, designed to make this person feel like they are the most important person in the room.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a lot of energy.
It's a lot of energy. And it's a skill to get used to doing. You can't just kind of... That's one of the harder things that when people start doing PT that they realize, they're like, oh shit, it's actually quite hard.
Yeah,
and then
definitely.
Different people as well to each time. But yeah, I noticed it in the first lockdown because I'm very introverted, and I was like, oh cool, just chill out at home for a while. And then
lockdown was designed for me.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh no, I'm actually going a little bit crazy. Human interaction is good.
Yes.
And yeah, definitely like the getting out and about makes a big difference as well too.
Yeah.
Like I'm lucky enough to have this office here now. So more times than not, even if I don't have, like if I have a day where I'm working on my online or doing content or whatever it might be, I'll still come into the office.
Yeah.
But it's been nice this week. I didn't come in on Monday and I didn't come in this morning, and I just worked from home. And I was like, oh, that's actually nice as a change.
Yeah, yeah. You can have like, I think also what I've realized is I've done the route of like a really strict morning routine.
Yeah.
But I think the beauty of, I guess, this kind of work now is that the strict morning routine is a good guideline, but you can still adapt depending on where you're at mentally.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Having like guidelines and frameworks make a big difference.
Yes.
Otherwise, that allows, we do that with our business with systems and coaching processes, whatever it might be, but that allows the variance in between, which makes a big difference. And the same kind of thing with diet as well too, and training.
Absolutely.
So tell us, while we're on the topic of you working, doing the online coaching, tell us a little bit what the online coaching process looks like, I guess, for you and then for the client getting started.
Yeah. I guess I can kind of merge those two together. So basically a interested potential client would fill out an application. I take a look at their goals and then decide if we would be a good fit or not. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we'll set up a consult online, a video chat. So then this way we can have a further chat on their goals. I can get them to know them better. I'll do a movement assessment. Mm-hmm. So I can kind of chat them through. And this way I can see range of motion, technique with certain things. If they're a more experienced lifter, chances are they already have videos of their training. So they send that through as well. And then this way I can actually create a program where I know them well enough to create a good first program. Mm-hmm. And then I always say that the program gets more personalized as we go through it because I see how they take on feedback, how they actually go with weight. Again, like a body weight assessment is going to be very different to a weighted one. Programs normally are about 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the client. And then my clients will have their program delivered to them on an app. There's videos there. They're able to track their sets and reps. And then they also have the option of filming themselves and uploading it to the app. So then I can then give them feedback. This way, they can go into their next week, like week 2 of their program, knowing what they need to focus on, what they kind of like did wrong in the first week, and how they can actually see progress within the program. I think it also, having feedback, gets rid of any confidence issues. I think when people are new to certain things, especially when it comes to like calisthenics skills like handstands, they're always kind of questioning like, am I doing this right? I think I'm doing this right. And then having a coach actually look at their videos and say, okay, cool, like this is what you need to focus on, or have a look at the difference between my video and your video, that kind of thing. So I'm very big on the feedback side of things when it comes to coaching. And then depending on like the tier of the client, my gold clients, we will go beyond training and look at the habits outside of training. So your nutrition, sleep, stress management, things like that. And then my silver clients are more just that training side of things. But I do a monthly check-in with them just as a formal way to kind of reflect on their training if needed.
Yeah, cool. And so when it comes to, to the strength training side of it, because you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you predominantly work with females, or do you have a lot of guys as well?
Predominantly females. I'm not against working with guys. I think just my whole branding is for the girls.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. It's great. It's funny, people get like a little bit put off by that. I say like I predominantly try to work with guys, and they're like, oh, what, don't you like females? Like, no.
What do you have against women?
I have quite a lot of female clients, and I do work well with them. I actually worked with a lot of female PTs over the years at Fitness Background, but I just do better with guys. I can vibe with guys a little bit more. I think it's more from the PT side of things. I like to help them because they're in a position that I once was with their business.
Yeah.
And they're a bit more interested in training.
Yeah.
But I think, if someone's interested in training and they're a girl, they're probably better off going to someone like you as well too, because that's your specialty.
Yeah. I think because of kind of my whole thing is develop movement, develop mindset, where like the confidence comes from your strength training and that process of getting stronger.
Yeah.
So guys come to me for the skills and the strength and like the technical side of things, whereas I think girls are more drawn to me for the vibe and the mindset side of it.
Yeah. And it's great as well. Like I was on the podcast yesterday talking to Zoe, and she asked me, because confidence is a massive thing in my business, and it's the reason why I do a lot of the things that I do, is that it was something that I struggled with, and in terms of from like a body composition standpoint and then a strength standpoint, and then like it's as I go through life, I've started to realize that constantly pops up. I want to be more confident in the thing that I'm doing, and so I try to instill that into my male clients. So that was one of her questions, and asked with how do I do that for guys? And I was like, well, I assume it's very different for guys to girls, because guys just will respond differently to different things.
Yeah.
And so I don't put like a whole big emphasis, talk about your confidence, or, put behaviors or habits or whatever it might be. But it's just like giving them a good plan, educating them on the basics, knowing that they can get the results, and teaching them the things that are going to get them results. And then as they start to go through that process, they see the change, they get a little bit leaner, they get stronger, and like that feeds the confidence. But then also like I act as a little bit of a hype crew as well too, because it's very easy for someone as they go through that, particularly guys, to not necessarily acknowledge the wins and the things that are stacking up. So I'm like, man, you're looking jacked today, like those kind of things. And it's just different for, like, there's obviously similarities, but it's different for guys and girls.
I think maybe also because like we're different people, so the approach would also just be different. Yeah.
That's the thing. There's going to be a better coach for someone else, and for vice versa.
Yeah.
That's what I want to showcase on here as well too. If there's someone in my audience that would be much better suited to work with you. Excellent. That's great, because that's going to help them.
Yeah.
Which is what we do. Yeah. So when it comes to training, what are some of the things where do you see people, or girls in particular, focus their attention in terms of strength training or calisthenics? And what are some of like the big rocks that you get your clients to start focusing on to get them results?
Okay, I think different answers for calisthenics and strength, I would say. I find strength training is probably easier to answer. I find when I am coaching newer clients who are interested in actually getting stronger, the issue kind of lies more in people think to get stronger, the training has to be just heaps of volume and they're kind of chasing the burn. And sometimes, especially beginners, they'll do a program and just say, hey, like, this felt really easy. I kind of didn't leave the gym feeling like I was going to die. I could still walk down the stairs. I'm not really getting DOMs, blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of have to explain, like, to get strong, you need to have good technique. And that's what we're working on first before we can push you. But also there is a difference, and like we talked about earlier, between an accumulation phase, which will feel a bit burny, and skill development.
Yeah.
Like if I'm trying to teach you a skill, I'm not going to gas you and make you do 20. I'm going to make you do 6 slow ones, especially if it's something that we're trying to work on with you. In terms of calisthenics, I don't think there's any... Oh, you know what? I think a lot of people think like, cool, I can do 1 pull-up, time to work on a muscle-up.
Yeah.
And it's just about the education of, or like I can do 2 chin-ups, it's time to work on a pull-up.
Yeah.
And it's sort of having to say like, hey, I know you can do the chin-ups and that was a goal of yours and now you really want the pull-up, but you'll actually get the pull-up if you get more chin-ups first. Yeah. You'll get your muscle-up if you can do a weighted pull-up. So kind of having to explain where, I guess, like maybe bring someone down a little bit to just explain like, you're here, you want to be here. This is a longer journey than you might think. Especially with handstands as well. I think like people get shocked that they have to go back on the wall to do drills, but really the wall is going to be your friend throughout the entire journey. Like I'm working on a one-armed at the moment. I still need the wall, you know? So it's the same thing as like, cool, like I know you can kick up and sometimes you can hold. That doesn't mean you can start working on a straddle press just yet. You still need like a consistent 20 to 30 second hold first. And that's going to take you a year.
Yeah.
So I think kind of having to, I guess, pull a client away from the big picture and then just kind of showing them like the little picture first. Just because I think if you're always looking so far ahead, you're only ever going to see how far away you are. Whereas if you have a bit more knowledge in all the steps in between, especially when it comes to like things like calisthenics, where the wins are massive, but the journey's so slow, you kind of have to point out all the other little micro wins before you hit such like a long-term goal.
Yeah. It's good. That's like a theme across a lot of different clients, is like they want to speed up the results. They want to get there yesterday. One funny little point, I won't mention the name, but Chris Mavros figured out one of, how you said, it's probably going to take you a year to get to this landmark with the handstand. Has he told you about his client that he figured out that it'll take him 900 years to
What?
to get?
What?
So, how you're saying that, there's probably landmarks and time frames that you're like, cool, in about this time, if you follow this process, it should take about this.
Yeah.
And if you get there, then it should take you about this, give or take, to get there. And then, so Chris's client has some of the earlier progressions for an extended period of time. So he did the math on how long.
Chris or the client?
Chris did. He didn't tell the client, but he figured out it'll take him about 900 years.
Everyone learns in their own time.
Yeah.
You know?
It's more just funny that Chris made that equation up.
I'm surprised he like bothered. That's a very math centered.
Yeah, it's a very Chris Mavros thing to do, though.
And all that for nothing. You can't even tell the client that.
Yeah, I know. He told me, and we had a bit of a laugh about it.
Oh.
The client keeps persisting as well too. So back to the theme of what we talked about last time. It's persistent through those shit times that gets you to move forward. And if he doesn't stop, he's gonna. Or if he stops, he's gonna be even further away from that.
Yeah.
900-year goal. Actually, on Chris Mavros as well too. I found great joy. You know how Chris is like probably one of the more confident and people that you'll meet. Like he doesn't ever usually feel uncomfortable in certain situations.
Very relaxed.
Him sitting there was the most uncomfortable that he has ever felt, but he didn't tell me. He told Rob.
Wait, why? Oh, because he had to sit still?
No, just because he was like being interviewed and doing the podcast. It was his first podcast.
Oh.
And so I had Rob on Tuesday, and Rob's like, you know, I found so much joy in finding out that Chris, for once in his life, got anxious and uncomfortable in a situation.
All you had to do was sit him down
with
put a bunch of equipment in his face.
One of his best mates, and he couldn't handle it.
Yeah, right. And just interrogate him for a couple of hours.
Yeah, so that was quite funny. So a big theme that I could sort of pull from the earlier conversation with that, it's pulling clients back and getting them to focus on the things that are actually going to get them to move forward, which is obviously what we do as a coach, because it's very easy to focus on that outcome.
Yeah.
But the outcome will only come from the process of doing it. So when starting out, because it'd be quite a hard thing to coach people for calisthenics online, yeah?
I think, I don't want to brag, but no.
Okay. Yeah.
I think one, having all that face-to-face experience means I've seen a lot of things, especially when it comes to beginners, which is why my whole thing, especially with handstands and in my handstand guide, I have like 4 beginners, but beginner looks different on everyone. So if you buy the handstand guide, you'll see that there's 4 different programs there, and you might need to start all the way at the first one, which is about weights and getting you confident in your shoulder strength. Or you might be a beginner, but maybe you're just a bit more confident. Maybe you've already had a bit of weighted experience. So you can start at like program 3. So I think that, and across all calisthenics skills, like just seeing how beginner looks on everyone on the gym floor has helped so much with being able to coach people online. And at the end of the day, I'm like a personal trainer who specializes in calisthenics, but most of my clients are going to the gym, which is an environment that I'm very confident coaching in. I'm not teaching like backflips, So all the skills that I have are usually the ones that are still quite easy to coach online. Yeah, in terms of if you know what you're doing and if you've done the education and so on.
Course.
Yeah.
And it's it's cool to see, as you have a good knowledge of, like you said, coaching, exercise selection, being in the gym and what movements are, you can use all those different tools to help someone reach that goal. Like a cool thing that you said there, and this is something that I already knew about your coaching style, but there's obviously a focus on calisthenics, which, yes, is body weight, but sometimes body weight can be really heavy for some people.
Yes.
So, and that's not a shot at anybody being heavy, but in terms of like if someone is lean but only can do 1 pull-up, that's very heavy for a person.
Yeah.
So they'll need to do some weights, which is, we talked about last time, sort of like general training. Every, sport or goal will need some general training.
Yeah, like sport-specific training is just general training, really.
Yeah, that's it. And if someone doesn't have the shoulder strength to be able to kick up on the wall, they probably should spend some time doing some
shoulder
stuff.
weighted exercises. Yeah.
So actually, like if there's anybody listening out there, like just a couple of things that you focus on in, as an example, the handstand, or even let's say like a muscle up, where would you start someone if they are kind of very, very beginner?
How beginner can they hang on? Are we talking about handstand or muscle up? They're 2 very different things.
Go handstand first.
Okay, so a handstand.
Like what are some of the general things that you would get them to do?
So everyone's really different. So if you cannot kick up to the wall at all, like you're coming up and maybe you're just too scared to even get your feet up, or you don't have the strength. You could do, if you really want that body weight feeling, like a cow push-up, which is a regression to a pike push-up. I'll do some straight arm work with them. So something I really like is like a plank to pike. So you'll go feet elevated plank, and then you'll walk into a pike position, and then walk back out to a plank. And I like that for beginners because, one, it's relatively easy to do. Two, it builds that straight arm strength needed for a handstand. Three, it also challenges your hip flexor and hamstrings, which is needed for a handstand too. And then four, it teaches you what it feels like to have the difference between a horizontal position and how to have your hips stacked over your shoulders in a vertical position, which is what the handstand is. And it just kind of gets you to learn that position in a safe way that doesn't require you to do a kick up.
Yeah.
And I find what's really common with people who've never done a handstand before is they'll kick up and their shoulders start to go towards the floor and they're moving forward horizontally, when really it's about pushing the floor away vertically. So that would be like super, super beginner. If someone's already a bit more confident and they can kick up, then we'll do a mix of strength and strength and skill, I should say, where the strength work might be building the shoulder endurance a little bit more in like that specific handstand position, so like a nose to wall, and getting you closer to the wall each time, because that's a marker of progress. It's not necessarily just about like holding the longest hold. And then some skill drills where we get you to understand how to use your fingertips in a handstand, or like, depending on what your like problem is. Yeah. Does that answer it?
Yeah, for sure. And in that, do you use any like weight training exercises to go along with that they're more specific towards the handstand? Do you do any other general weight training exercises?
Specifically for a handstand, it would be like straight arm stuff. So that would be like, I really like a plate raise with a reach as well, because you're getting that protraction and then the really important elevation. A lot of shoulder stability work, so things like kettlebell, like bottoms up presses. I'm a big fan of torch presses. I don't think great overhead mobility is necessarily like a must have, but it does help. So doing things for your serratus and your lats will help a lot. And I find that in terms of injury prevention, no matter what level you're on, if you're making sure that you're taking care of your external rotators, you should be good as well. For the beginners who need to build that confidence, we'll be doing normal like dumbbell presses and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And then if you were to use, what are some of the things that you would do for like the muscle up? It's, let's say, you used example earlier that, someone gets one or two chin-ups and then they want to do a pull-up, or someone gets, where would you start someone at that one or two chin-ups if they were wanting to get a muscle up?
Yeah. I would say, I don't want to put a number on it, but clean sets of chin-ups to then build towards clean sets of pull-ups to then build towards weighted pull-ups, because you do need quite an explosive pull, especially for the girls out there. You need to have like a good weighted pull up before you can realistically get a muscle up. So I think heaps of people think we're doing like specific muscle up drills first, but really it's a lot on your joints, especially if you're starting on rings. So you might have a couple of practice goes in there, like, because again, I work with a lot of girls, we'll do more ring muscle up work. So we will start with like false grip hangs, which are really hard if you've never done them before, like they burn your wrists. So that might be the only muscle up specific drill you'll have. And then the other things are more focused on getting your 1RM pull up a lot stronger. And then obviously to be able to work towards a 1RM pull up, you need to have clean sets of weighted pull ups first. But the more explosive your pull up will be, the more helpful it is for your muscle up, whether it's bar or ring. And then of course, like the dip is a big part of it. So alongside of that, we'll be doing dips. No rings just yet, especially if you're a beginner. Let's just get you a strong dip. Let's get you strong weighted dips. And then we'll introduce you to the rings for some weighted ring dips. But really, like, even if you are working towards a 1 RM muscle up, you don't need to do that many ring dips or that many ring pull-ups. And I say that just because not every gym has rings, and I don't want people to think that's a barrier to entry. Also because, like, rings just, it's a lot on your tendons, and you don't necessarily need to do, cool, like, I want to do a muscle up, so I must do ring dips, I must do ring pull-ups. Like, you can get a very long way with just your normal P-bars and a normal pull-up bar, and you can do your rings if you have access to that. Like, it's actually such a small part of your workout.
Yeah. And particularly like with like a normal dip will allow you to accumulate more practice, more good quality practice as well too. Because the ring dips are obviously a little, like, can be a lot more unstable, particularly in my instance when you fall from the roof. And if you were to be able to do 2 ring dips, 3 ring dips, but you could do 5 to 8 on the normal bars, and then you could add weight on the normal bars. It's going to carry over.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's cool to see, like, the still good general principles applied to the same, same thing or a different thing.
Yeah.
With, I don't know, do you remember, I don't know if you were there, Chris and I did a development in Marrickville on sports performance and
and you guys did like a difference,
but
it wasn't really that different.
It wasn't really that different. And like Rob and I were talking about it, there's probably, I don't know, I need to compile a list of the principles, but there's a few key principles that if you apply across, different modalities of training, they all ring true as well too.
Yep.
You can't get super, super specific if you haven't done the general stuff. So if we look at it from like a powerlifting, standpoint or weightlifting standpoint, you're going to be doing lots of sets of 6 to 8 reps and practicing the skill before you go to the higher weight, lower rep stuff. And the same thing if someone wants to get a ring muscle up or a bar muscle up, they still have to be able to do, something like 10 pull-ups, before you can even go close to that.
And if you are only on 2 pull-ups, then there's going to be some weights involved.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing with calisthenics, because I feel like what's really popular on social media is watching these like young testosterone fueled men just do so much volume of like a body weight thing, and it's just like the workout is just different variations of that exact specific movement.
Yeah.
And I think people are like, yeah, I want a calisthenics program. They think it's that. And then they're like, why is there so much weights on here? Like, well, I'm trying to not get you injured. That's why.
Yeah.
And also you don't have the capacity to do that. Like,
that's the thing. And there's the human body is the human body. And just because there's a name attached to a modality of exercise doesn't mean the human body changes.
Yeah.
So this, like what we talked about, like the principles, exercise selection, sets and reps, programming, tempo, whatever it might be, and understanding anatomy of what is actually moving when you're doing a movement, because calisthenics is human movement, powerlifting is human movement, weightlifting is human movement, playing rugby is human movement.
Yeah.
So we're all humans, we're all moving.
You don't need to reinvent the wheel for every single specific thing.
No.
Yeah.
And if you can apply the concepts from one thing to the other, it's all strength and conditioning, it's all sports science, you'll have a better time. And ultimately that'll lead to your clients progressing a lot faster.
Yeah.
Which is why we'll do it. It might not be, I remember talking to Chris Mavros about it, because when he was doing a lot of calisthenics down in Bondi, and his mate would do, he's like, you should try this calisthenics workout. And it was like 5 weighted pull-ups with 20 kilos, then straight into 10 unweighted pull-ups, and then you'll rest and you'll do 5 weighted pull-ups. And then he's like, it's really hard. And Chris is like, yes, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Like, but are you getting better on it? He's like, yeah, it's hard. He's like, well, maybe just
chasing that feeling.
Yeah, maybe just do 3 sets of 5 and then 1 or 2 back off sets, and you would get a better training stimulus. But he's like, no, but this is calisthenics. And he's like, yeah, but it's still the same thing.
Yes.
If you want to increase your squat, do 3 sets of 5 and maybe a back off set.
Yeah. I think out of, in this day and age, with all the information out there, the basics are still underrated.
Yeah.
And it's so annoying.
Yeah. It's crazy. Hey, like everybody just wants that silver bullet or that thing that gets them there.
Yeah.
And I see because it sells, but it's the annoying thing is it sells, and it sells sells a dream and a little bit of a lie to the people, you know.
Yeah, that you need like this specific way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in calisthenics, like the specific skills and the specific positions are where like that technicality comes into it as well. But the general stuff that gets you up to being able to do that, when Chris was on, he was saying, you know, in an ideal world, if someone wants to, you know, not to be taken out of context, but in an ideal world, if someone wants to get really, really good at calisthenics, they probably should spend a year doing mostly just general strength training.
Yes.
All things.
Yeah.
And add skills in along as they go. But until you hit those performance criteria of, you know, if you want to do a front lever, you're going to have a heavy pull up. You're not going to do a front lever if you can do 5 pull ups.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And I think that's, you said something that I was like, oh, that makes sense. I think, that's what it was. I think like people, we call it a calisthenics basic, like pull ups are basics and push ups and dips. They're hard if you've never done any of this before, and just because we say it's a basic doesn't mean it's beginner.
Yeah.
So if you're really coming from a place of you can barely do push-ups, you can do a couple of chin-ups, like if you spend a good amount of time like getting clean sets and reps of these basics, it's going to just make your journey so much easier and like injury-free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. It saves a lot of time and a lot of frustration and get you to the thing a lot faster, even though in the interim it seems like it's going slower.
Yeah.
But it will allow you...
Because you're not doing this specific thing.
Yeah, but it will allow you to have exponential progress at a point as well too. You know, it's a hard thing for people to see. There's a lot of good things on social media, but it does distort a lot of what people's perception is of reality with those things.
Yeah, 100%.
There was another... the pull-ups and push-ups one. I was talking to someone... Andy, one of the guys I had on earlier this week, and he asked me the question of, you know, if someone's doing a bench press but they can't do a push-up, they can't do a push-up, what's your thoughts on that? And it was coming from the perspective or the thought process of, you know, how people were, they're like, well, until you can do X amount of strict push-ups, you shouldn't be touching a bar. Until you can do X amount of strict pull-ups, you shouldn't be using a lat pull-down. You know,
it's like the other way around.
I know, that's the thing, but it's getting better, but you know, the dogma of those sorts of things, that wasn't him saying that that's his opinion.
Yeah.
He's like, what's your opinion on when people think of that?
Yeah.
And I always just think back to, you know, again, principles of programming, principles of exercise selection, principles of meeting the client where they're at. Like you said, you do a movement assessment.
Yeah.
So I can meet the client where they are and give them the appropriate exercise.
Yeah.
And if they can't do, you know, 15 push-ups, but they could do a 5 kilo dumbbell press, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, and then it will help with the push-ups.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
And why make someone feel bad that they can't do this amount of sets and reps of something?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, when it comes to online, I'm always a little bit more conservative. Like, I'd rather see you nail something than give you, and be able to change that to something harder, than give you something that you then had to go, this is impossible.
Yeah.
And then you're immediately like, I guess this just isn't for me. Or it's unsafe, you know?
Yeah. And we want to set our clients up for success. And I think, like, anybody listening that, you know, there's a lot of good coaches out there that take that process of, like, meet them where they're at. Maybe a little bit less than where you're at, but just progression is always way better than regression.
Yeah.
And we can't always get it exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But, you know, that's the reason why we'll probably pull you back a little bit to speed you up at a point as well too. It's a funny thing. I understand it. Everybody wants to just move forward and get the thing that they
set a
want.
goal and then just immediately do the goal.
Yeah. Actually, you said that on the last podcast, not to bring it back up again, but you said, I want to do a double body weight squat. And then you're like, I technically can already do that.
But I'm technically I did. Oh, well, I don't know. Technically, not really at the time. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So yeah. Okay.
The PB is there.
Yeah. Keep pushing through that shit. So that's a really, really good, I think hopefully if anybody's listening, you start to understand like the thought process around that. And, you know, you can apply hopefully those principles to your training as well too. If not, go see Danny. She'll sort you out and to get you there faster.
I'm going to pull you right back.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. If you want regression, but for progression. So when it comes to, whoops, I just deleted that question.
Regression for progression.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's another one of the quotes. I learned another quote in the time since our last one that I've been vibing with, and we could do in a whole nother section. That was actually some good feedback I got. People like the quotes.
Oh yeah, of course I do.
Yeah. Volume negates luck.
Volume negates luck.
So the more you do of something to a certain extent, I'm thinking more of it from a business standpoint, the more you do of it to a certain extent, it negates luck. Practice makes improvement kind of thing.
Yep.
And so as you stack up more practice, more days of doing something, more times of doing something, it negates the need for luck.
Kind of like the opposite of what we were saying last time about the harder I work, the luckier I get, but they both kind of have the same vibe.
Yeah, they have the same vibe. Yeah. Because like what is hard work? You know, I still like that one but hard work oftentimes is the volume of turning up and doing it after over and over and over and over again. Yeah.
And usually like what we see is an opportunity and we think it's lucky would never have presented itself to us if we weren't ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Keep showing up enough. So when it comes to habits around nutrition, this was something we talked about off air and you spoke about in your YouTube videos, but a little bit harder on the short form social media. So what are some of the things that you focus on with your clients or your habits and behaviors around nutrition, but also just in lifestyle in general?
Yeah. So I guess like nutrition is a whole thing in itself without even stretching to lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So maybe I can start with nutrition and then we'll go from there. I think
they go hand in hand though,
they
because like
do.
It's a constant thing.
And also like the strategy behind your nutrition is going to include lifestyle, I guess. I think something that I have realized working with clients who, like for me, I think I'm really lucky in that I'm surrounded by PTs who are my friends who care about their health, and it's so easy to talk about like, oh yeah, like this ice cream has better macros, blah, blah, blah. And then my friends know me well enough to know that like I can be super open with them when I go out to eat, like, oh, I'm only have this many like calories, or I'm trying to get a high protein meal. Like they're all super understanding of it. But I find that when people come to me and it's their first time focusing on food, they don't like to tell other people that this is what their focus is. And they come into a check-in and they're like, what do I do when like I go out and all my friends want to eat this, but I find it really hard to track? So like lifestyle-wise, we kind of talk about, firstly, you can just tell your friends where you're at and no one's going to force you to eat or drink things that you don't feel like are aligned with your current goals. Yeah. And I find that like if you're honest with your friends, you can then also kind of modify the plans as needed, because your friends are your friends. They should support you.
Yeah.
Even just as tiny as like, hey, I'm trying to be more active. Like instead of, you know, Friday night drinks, do you want to go for like a Friday afternoon walk and catch up and then go drink after if you so choose? But, you know,
do something healthy first.
Yeah. Or you don't have to go in like hiding why you're choosing to not drink. You know,
that's been a big one I've talked about with my clients recently. With there's a bit of a trend with like the non-alcoholic beers and cocktails and things like that, which is really, really good. But some people's reaction towards those things is so negative of like, oh, they have to hide the fact that they're drinking a non-alcoholic beer.
It's weird, I think like the science behind it is it's projection.
Yeah.
Where you're doing something that you want to do and someone then thinks it's like a weird attack on them where they're like, oh, that's different from me, but I'm going to defend why I'm doing it my way.
Yeah. And it's you should do it my way as well.
Yeah, but like it's not about you.
No.
And I think, you know, I feel like people get nervous about telling their goals to people because of that reaction.
Yeah.
But I think like if you know that, one, you can probably call people out better if they do have that response to you, because they shouldn't really be responding to you in that way if they are your mate.
Yeah.
But two, like just telling your goals to people is just going to help you, which is what you want.
Yeah, for sure. It's a funny thing.
Yeah.
I've had a client recently and his wife he's lost maybe 6 or 7 kilos. And he started training more and he's feeling good, and like he's got 3 kids and a wife, and he has set a goal to he's climbing a mountain somewhere, like snowshoeing kind of thing.
Oh,
Yeah, which is quite like intense. It's not just normal hiking. You've got to wear the big.
Sounds intense.
Yeah. And so he's like, I need to do it and do it, the best way I can. I need to probably be 10 kilos lighter. So I think he's like 5 or 6 kilos down or somewhere in the ballpark.
Wow, yeah.
But so he's made some changes, and his wife has not. And
Is she doing it too?
No,
okay.
she's not. But he was just telling me some of the comments that she would make about him doing that. That he was fine with it because he's aware enough to realize where that is coming from. But then
it's that awareness, right?
Yeah. But then she started to make changes in her life as well too. It's her birthday coming up, and they're going to do like a double Pilates and yoga.
Oh, amazing.
And he's like, I gotta go to this. And I was like, that's good, man, because that's you positively influencing her to make those changes.
Yeah.
Because she did actually say that as well too. She's like, I'm just jealous of your progress after a period of time.
And that's like good on her for recognizing that versus like seeing it as like an attack.
Yeah.
Just looking inwards and being like, why am I responding this way to someone?
Yeah.
But some people, I think that's really good for them. Yeah. And I can completely understand that it's hard to be the first person to suggest the change.
Yeah.
But also like, it's no pressure on the other people to do that change. You're literally just asking for support. Yeah. It's like the least you can, it's the bare minimum you can ask from like a partner or a friend.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it is, I can't remember what I was saying. Oh, in terms of, I think one thing as well too, how you said, instead of going out for just drinks, like could you go for a walk before and do something healthy? But you can still have the drinks as well too.
Yeah.
If you are doing it, I think it's like that all or nothing mentality.
Yeah.
Is where people kind of, they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and up and down, but managing those things. So where were we? So I guess we're focusing on like getting support from friends there.
Yeah.
What are some other things, or the network around you? What are some other things that you help clients sort of navigate with that?
Yeah. I would say like protein's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the track you were going down?
Oh, no, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Any.
I think like it's such a stereotype, or it feels like such a cliche that PTs are pushing high protein. But I think, and I've seen the same with my own journey, like I eat like 160 grams of protein a day, and there was a time when I found 100 grams of protein really hard. So getting a client to understand, there's just so many benefits of it, right? And I don't know if we should go over that. Like,
can if you like.
Beyond body composition, protein's going to help you, especially with women. Like as we age, it's going to prevent like a decrease in bone density and a decrease in muscle loss, right? So other than aesthetic, like if that's not your goal, you still want to have like a high protein diet. It's also going to help a lot with recovery, so in between sessions. And I find that, people aren't in the habit of eating high protein, and that's something that we do work towards. Like, and it's just the little changes, as in like, you don't have to cut things out. You can just add the protein in when you're first starting. Just learn how to be in the mindset of like protein first. What do I put around it? Or when you're going out to eat, like prioritize the protein first, and then add your bits and pieces, your sides or whatever you want to have. And I think just like educating clients on what's a protein, what's a carb, what's a fat. Because there's that whole, people keep thinking peanut butter is high in protein, or, things like that. Or people will say they eat healthy and then show you what they actually eat. And it's like, it's not about the healthy side of things, it's about the volume, I guess. And you can say you eat healthy by eating like, classic example, like an acai bowl.
Yeah.
But like, if there's no protein in there, are you eating in a way, are you eating like healthy, or are you eating in alignment to your goals?
Yeah.
So that's a big one, like getting into the mindset of like, you know what, it's hard to think about protein, and it's hard to change a habit that you're into, or even a mindset that you have. But if you can just get better at that, you're already going to see so many positive changes, both short term and long term. Yeah,
for sure. And it's like the big rock of the nutrition rocks, let's say. I don't know
the base of the pyramid.
Yeah, the base of the pyramid. when you're looking at macros, because like you said, you don't necessarily need to consciously think about taking stuff out, but when you add that in unconsciously, you're probably not going to have the need to, at 3 p.m. I need to go grab a chocolate, or I need to grab a coffee, because I'm actually satiated and my body feels good. And it is the most satiating of all our macronutrients. So if you're full on protein, it's really, really hard to fuck the rest of it up.
Yeah.
You know? And then so many benefits, even like muscle building is actually probably the least of the benefits of protein. From a health standpoint, it actually helps with stress, dealing with stress. There's some amino acids that are responsible for creating the stress hormones that we have.
And there you go.
So if we are void in amino acids, which they're going to be the building blocks of protein, and you're really, really low on that, the body is always going to prioritize what is most important or most stressful first, or the threat first. So if we have high levels of stress, and we've got and we've also got high levels of training, which is a stressor as well. If we've got a low amount of protein, a substantial amount of that protein is going to go towards building stress hormones.
Makes sense.
Before it will go to building muscle, because it doesn't really care about that.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's where like a lot of the 2 grams per kilo of body weight and upwards, you cover that base that is needed for hormone production. And then you can build muscle after it as well too.
It just gives you a good foundation to do more things.
Yeah, that's it. And like a lot of people deal, one of the points that you said in terms of like the lifestyle things, like dealing with stresses, that's part of it as well too. Immune function, brain function, connective tissue, all those sorts of things.
Just energy throughout the day.
Yeah.
Even that.
Absolutely.
I think that's like another thing, right? Like, I guess habit wise, getting a client to notice their patterns, where I think the amount of clients I have who talk about like, oh, the worst part is the evening and I'm just so hungry. If you didn't eat throughout the day, of course you're hungry. Like if you didn't eat enough. So like getting them to learn how much is actually in a meal, because I think people are like, I'm going to eat this salad for lunch and there's like nothing in the salad. Of course you're going to come home starving and your house has all the snacks and all the food. Like that's where it comes from. And like just educating them, like if you had protein in the salad, or if you had some rice in there, God forbid, you will feel a lot better at the end of the day.
And then you're so much less likely to overeat in the periods where you have time to overeat. I think when people are busy doing a lot of stuff at work and you're focusing on something, your brain will focus on that, and then stress is going to be elevated as well. It's really easy to miss meals, but then your body will try its best to make up for it at other times when there's less stress.
Good old ghrelin.
Yeah. And how, I think every coach has probably experienced it when they tell a client to eat more protein, and then they start eating the amount of protein and they get all the positive benefits, and like, oh wow, I still am under eating on my calories, but I feel so full because I've got so much protein. It makes it so much easier to adhere to a diet when protein is really, really high.
Yeah.
Then you start to get used to it, and then you go into a deficit and you eat a lot of protein and you still feel hungry anyway.
Yeah. But at least you're getting your protein in.
You're getting your protein in.
Yeah.
And then as well too, like in when it comes to cutting, it's really, really important to have that in there as well, because you're going to have all the positive benefits, but then also lessen the likelihood of losing muscle mass. Yeah. From a longevity standpoint, that's good as well.
I also think like maybe it is the satiety aspect of it, but people will also like realize that it does alter cravings in some way, like whether that is because you're just more satisfied, or because you're just more focused on this. Like I think there's a whole thing where people are always like, listen to your cravings and honor your cravings. It's like sometimes you can just be curious about it and change your mind and go against that. Like you can surf the urge but not have to give in to it, especially if it's so misaligned with your goals. Yeah.
And our body's really good to really good at seeking out pleasure as well too. Yeah. So, eating protein is probably not as enjoyable as eating like a chocolate or something, go with your cravings.
And it never will be.
It never will be. But if you ate the protein, it's your body just going, let's look for something that's going to give us a bit of pleasure. Let's look for something that's going to, get us where we kind of want to be, and we'll go for the easiest option first as well too. And if you fill up on protein, it's so much harder to do that. But one point that you raised there as well too, if you have the salad with some protein and God forbid some carbs, another big rock as well too, if people are not eating a lot of carbs or enough carbs, how easy it is to just go looking for the things that
you're missing.
Yeah, your body will crave carbohydrates because it's pretty important as well too.
Yeah.
So what do you do in terms of, so protein first, on the topic of carbohydrates, what do you do around carbohydrates with clients?
I would say I'm not like the biggest fan of recommending carbs and fats, like specifically. I think like if you're coming from a place where you're already struggling with protein, I'm not going to add in extra variables. I actually don't do this heaps with a lot of clients really. I'm more about like making sure you're eating enough and having the protein because I find like, yes, the science is going to say like more carbs are going to be better for your training or whatever. And having like this specific amount of fat is going to be better for like hormone regulation and whatnot. But I think I'm not training like professional athletes. We're not looking to, if anything, we're just trying to get you to a good foundation. We're not looking to like major in minors or like optimize just yet. Like you can't optimize without a good foundation. So I find that with most clients, because I think that's what it is. Like people are introduced to macros and think, oh, I got to do the whole like enchilada now and do like pre-workout nutrition and like carbs and fats and protein. But like getting my client to realize like if you prefer this many carbs over fats, then go do that if that makes your life easier. And as long as you're eating enough and you're feeling satisfied and you're hitting your protein, like I'm happy with that, and I think you should be too.
Yeah.
I think even though the science is like, hey, like if you have this many carbs before your training, you're just going to have a way better session. If you're like not enjoying that, or you find it hard to do, don't.
Yeah.
No one's paying you for results, to be honest. Like, so if you're already good and you're getting like the bare minimum, you're good. Go focus on the other things that you want to enjoy in life. Like, don't stress yourself out. Like, this is supposed to be something that is like easy for you down the track, and it's not going to be easy if it's something you're actively like constantly thinking about or even just resenting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, it's setting the foundation knowledge for that to allow you to navigate those things as well too. Because if you're not aware of any of the stuff, it's hard to change any of it. But starting at protein usually ticks most of the boxes. Anything else there on nutrition that you focus on with your clients?
I think those are probably the main ones. Like, I think getting clients also to realize, like, I think pre-workout nutrition, as much as I just said, don't stress about pre-workout nutrition, but like the difference between, it's crazy. Like I'll have clients who have trained for years before training with me, and then I'll recommend like, hey, maybe eat something before you train, and then go, wow, I just felt so much better.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, because you ate.
Yeah.
So I think like that's probably like something I work with them on. But other than that, nothing crazy. I think we talk about like strategizing for social events.
Yeah.
And something that I thought was super basic, but reminded a client of the other day, like if someone puts a plate of food down in front of you, you don't have to eat it all. And they're like, oh. So I think like that's a big thing as well. Like some things just seem so obvious and then they're not. So I don't know if I've named enough things, but nothing else is coming to mind.
That was one of the things that you said with some of the advice you got from Rob on the last one, is you don't need to eat beyond the point of enjoyment, I think it was.
Yeah.
And that's the same concept. Just because you're at a social event and someone puts a plate of food in front of you, you don't need to eat it all if you're beyond that point.
Yeah.
You know. And that's a big thing as well too, because I know I've been there before with like social events and things like that where I would definitely avoid them completely. Or if I do go, then it's a free for all.
It's that all or nothing.
All or nothing, yeah. But a lot of it, for me anyway, was the more you start to understand about nutrition, and I don't say this from a place of like, up on my soapbox, of like the basic things that we just talked about, understanding protein, understanding having like carbohydrates and fats, but not focusing crazy amounts on them, because there's also a massive, there's like a 20% discrepancy between what the calories are on a label.
Yeah, you're not actually eating the exact amount.
No.
Yeah.
But ignoring it completely, it's just, what are you doing? And we know that it's an element in terms of achieving our results. We need to be able to fuel it. But yeah, having more awareness around it, and I think I used the term earlier, more like nutritional literacy around it.
Yeah.
Makes those situations so much less stressful as well too. For me, drinking was one of the things like I abstained from it for the longest period of time. I was like, no, I can't do it at all. Like that's it. And then I just, again, more knowledge about it. Like, oh, cool. You can still drink. And maybe if you minimize a couple other things or whatever it might be, or just take that into account, you can still achieve your goals. Yeah. Have fun in those social
And just because someone's drinking X amount doesn't mean you have to as well.
That's the thing. Yeah. And because I think it's really, really important for people to see from like the longevity standpoint of things. We want to be able to do these things for a long period of time if we're looking at it from a health standpoint.
Yeah.
Which I think, even if you have cool like performance goals and body composition goals, like if we don't have a health, we don't have anything.
Yeah.
So, and there's going to be a time, while we're pretty young now, there's going to be a time in 30 years time where it's not going to be the same things in terms of, you're not going to be trying to push performance as much, and you just probably want to be healthy, and all those habits and behaviors stack up for a long period of time. Protein is going to be protein in 30 years from now, hopefully. And, calories are going to be calories. We're still going to have those principles.
And just knowing about them is going to help you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no different to the example I said on the podcast yesterday was not being willing to understand like calories and proteins and macronutrients to a certain extent is like trying to save money, but not acknowledging that $1 is the value that you're trying to, the monetary value.
Yeah.
We all agree upon that. That's $1. You go to a different country, it's going to be a different currency. But you're still going to try and accumulate the money and of that currency, of whatever it might be. But if you're like, I want to save a lot of this money, but I'm not going to appreciate that it is $1 or how it might work, it's really, really hard to do. And for a lot of people that don't understand nutrition, you have to kind of pull back and learn the basics first before you can move on with it as well too.
There's like, why be ignorant when you don't have to be?
Yeah.
But in saying all of this, I also want to just say like, it also goes the other way around. Like if you're going out and someone else is on a diet or whatever, and you're having a good time and you know what your goals are, you also don't need to adhere to what they're doing. And like, just because a bunch of people, especially in the summer, maybe are talking about their deficits and whatnot, if you're good, you're good. Yeah. Like you also don't need to go down that path. No. Just because I feel like we talked a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Focus on yourself, support other people for what they're doing.
Yep.
And move forward. So I think we covered some cool stuff there. Back to you. For you, what are some of the weekly non-negotiables that you implement into your schedule to help you show up, be the best you can be for yourself and your clients and your friends and everybody else around?
I'm trying to think of like, I don't know if it's like a non-negotiable, but I think the things that I definitely would focus on a lot throughout the day, I think ideas will come to me as I talk. Water is always a big one, staying hydrated. It's not going to happen every night, but like having a good night's sleep. I think a good night's sleep is genuinely something you don't realize is so positive until you have a bad night's sleep. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, whoa, it really does add. Like you don't realize it's so beneficial until you don't have it.
Yeah. Have you done any reading or education around sleep or?
Yeah, I think everyone's gone through that why we sleep phase. Yeah. Yeah. And then I went through a Whoop phase as well.
Yeah.
So that definitely helps, and like learning a lot about that has been good.
It's crazy, hey, the benefits or the everything that sleep does.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense, but again, people are not aware about it. I function on 4 hours sleep. It's fine for me.
Oh, could you? Are you the 1%?
Yeah. It's highly unlikely. So good night's sleep.
Yeah. Definitely movement, like walks. Again, I think I was talking about that transition between going from PT where I was up on my feet to just a desk job, and I wasn't really prioritizing getting outside. Like everyone says it because it's true, but just going outside, getting a bit of sunlight throughout your day and getting some movement in, doesn't have to be a crazy run or a big strength session, but just a good walk sprinkled in is just going to help you so much, like mentally. And I think like energy wise, like if I'm feeling a slump and like just going out even for like just a quick 10 minutes, having the sun on my face, it helps a lot with like my mental health, I find, and also lets me, again, like good mental health means I'm better at my job. So that's definitely one.
Up and down South Darling Street, yeah.
Yeah, it's so gorgeous out there. I'm so sick of it.
Yeah, that little escape to Bondi and then back to Zetland. You should walk around and see if that eel is there.
You know, every time I go past there, so the people who don't know Matt and I are like semi-neighbors, and there's that little, it's not even a river or a lake.
It's just like a little pond.
Yeah. But one time I went through and like people were cleaning it or something.
Yeah.
So are there really eels in there?
Oh, have you not seen it yet?
No. Every time I go in, I remember.
I'm going to find a photo for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Of course you have a photo.
I always look for it. It's kind of a highlight of my day. I'm always disappointed when it's not there.
Of course you are. You got a name for it?
No, I don't. It's pretty creepy. Like the eyes on them are so freaky.
I don't think that I remember the last time I looked at an eel.
There's a turtle in there as well too.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, that's as exciting as Mel and my walks get.
Well, it's, you know, the area for it.
True.
What else? Okay, so I guess like beyond the physical side of things, like I feel like that's very fitnessy to say like water and movement.
And sleep.
Oh, and sleep, yes. But from a mental health standpoint, like trying to find that balance of having enough social time but also enough quiet time. And I think that's something I always have to try to figure out because it's not a set routine for me. And I don't think it can be because mentally like each week is like a little bit different because she's unstable. I don't know if that's like counts for everyone, but like there are going to be some times where I do need to be like a bit more alone, and there are times when I need to really fill up my social calendar, and that's just more on like listening to my mind a little bit better. So I think that's a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Kind.
It's just kind of managing your schedule best for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the time when you're alone allows you to actually think as well too.
Yeah.
It's one thing for me. Like I need to be able to have just some open-ended time where with minimal distractions. Otherwise, I can't be creative or.
Yeah. You got to let yourself be bored.
Yeah. And then it allows you to, and that's a really good thing with the walking as well too, or just getting out, changing your focus for a short period of time will allow you to focus again. And human beings are meant to move. It usually makes us feel pretty good as well too.
Yeah. And then when you're feeling good, that's when you can be creative or inspired or motivated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
I also think a non-negotiable for me is journaling.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. I try for at least once a week.
Yeah.
I'm not like a massive sit down gratitude journal kind of person.
Cool.
But I try to, I think even on weeks where I feel like I don't have anything to write about, it's surprising, like even if I just sit down and start by recounting my week, like what's going to come up.
Yeah.
And that always then allows me to go, oh, okay, cool. Like this is what was stressing me about my week, or this is what I'm really happy about. And then I can take that into the next week and then plan from there what I do need to focus on.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
How did that come about for you?
Everything comes about organically. I started journaling like end of high school.
Okay, cool.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I just did. And then I think like everyone, there's like all these different types of styles of journaling, and I was trying to find what worked for me because I think so many people like journaling isn't for me. But for me, it's literally just like stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
And I think I wish I could say like why I chose to do it, but I really don't remember. But I do think I'm really lucky in doing that because I think I'm always someone who talks about the importance of being self-aware because I think the more self-aware you can be, like the more sure of yourself you are when it comes to going towards what you want versus what you think you should want. And I think journaling has helped me a lot with that, like being able to kind of think and look back and kind of see patterns or just see what I'm thinking about so much, what's stressing me out, then kind of points a lot of like what my values are, or it gives me a little check in, like, am I living a life in accordance with my values or am I not? Why am I feeling so antsy about certain things? And it just kind of helps me, I don't know, like, for the most part, it's pretty easy to give yourself therapy when you know, but, you know, if there are things that I'm struggling with that I've noticed I'm writing about but don't know how to help, then that's when I ask for help.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
A big thing that, you know, you said a few times there, and it's kind of a theme across the conversation, and then a lot of the conversations I've had with coaches as well too on here, like the awareness thing.
Yeah.
You know, and particularly if stuff is in your mind, it's really, really easy just to bounce from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and stuff goes around, and then you get a text message and you think about something different, whatever it might be. And having some time where it's just focused on, oh, what are these thoughts? Write the thoughts down. You can then get more of a broader view of it.
Yeah.
You know, let's say. And just being aware of like, oh, how was that week? What were the patterns were? You know, what can I do moving forward? It's a really, really cool thing to do. I think it's one of those things that like you said, there's so many different styles to do it. There's no right or wrong way to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's cool tools out there that you can get.
If you need to use a prompt.
Yeah. Just having like a couple key questions or whatever it might be. I journal pretty much every day.
Wow.
Yeah, it will do, for me, it's like, I guess like it's a combination of kind of like that alone time and time to focus. So I'll get up in the morning, like just a little bit before Mel, so that I can sit down, have my coffee, and just sometimes I just stare out the window.
Classic.
And wake up and, okay, I'm a human again. But then just having, like, it's just reflection, so you can be aware on it. Like I do try to focus on a couple of things that I am grateful for as well, because I think, you know, for some people that's really, they can do that in their head. For me, I just have to see it written down.
Yeah.
And that's a connection
and
with it.
It gives you an actual prompt to do that if
Yeah.
you're not someone who's naturally going to be grateful throughout your day, right? Yeah.
And then questions I ask, I do like a little bit of a weekly reflection for kind of myself and my business, like on a Monday.
Oh, yeah.
And how the week was before, but I do like a daily reflection as well too. So how was yesterday? How am I better? And just stacking up those wins, because again, like one thing that I said that I like to do with my clients is like be like a little bit of a hype crew and acknowledge the things that went well.
Yeah, got to do the same for yourself.
Yeah, got to do the same for yourself, and not like to go crazy and like, oh, whoa, celebration, I did this yesterday, that, you know, but it's like, oh, cool, that was cool. I wouldn't have done that 3 months ago.
Even just like a little reminder for you that I am doing what I said I was going to do, which is always like a massive win in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And having the focus. So after I do that, I do today's focus. And it's funny because yesterday I had a full day of PT. Then I went into the podcast, and then I had more sessions after. And I just wrote my focus for the day: sessions, podcast. And then that was it. In times where I've got a busy day, but I've got all these other things to do, and then I'll write down a list of focuses that is just not achievable for that day.
Yeah.
The day went so much better yesterday, and then write that down today. I was like, oh, cool, it was a good day.
Because you set up some realistic expectations.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But just being like, it doesn't need to be journaling, but just being keyed into what's actually.
It's just a tool from mindfulness.
Yeah.
Which I think is like, again, we're having this conversation, it all seems very normal, and this has been a habit for me since high school.
Yeah.
But I do recommend this to clients sometimes, like when they're talking about something and I sort of encourage them to like unpack it. I do remember like one time a client had said to me like, you know, when I tell these like problems to my friends, the answer is normally like, oh, like go treat yourself and like have a drink, or go buy something to make yourself happy. And it's like moments like this where I'm like, oh, it's not normal to kind of encourage people to check in on themselves, or even just like get them to sit in the discomfort or to unpack things. Which I think again is like, if we're talking about this as people who are quite self-aware, like this is what I think should be more normalized.
Yeah.
Like I totally get, like I'm not one to not treat myself or not buy something, you know, for the dopamine hit. But I think like having that awareness and having a practice to be aware without even having to invest in therapy is just going to be so beneficial. Like, I don't think a lot of people are out there trying to encourage you to be uncomfortable, but sometimes like sitting in the discomfort and analyzing your discomfort is going to be so much more helpful for you in the future. And like you said, even day to day, like it just helps with that. So imagine if you did that day to day and that became a week to week to a year year, how much better your life could be in a year after just analyzing and like studying your stressors.
It's the classic atomic habits, like small little things add up to be a really, really big thing.
Definitely.
Yeah, and just being aware, and like, it's not like necessarily like a concept that people can't get their head around. It's like a diagnostic tool, or you go to a mechanic and they will run some diagnostics on your car and then they'll fix it. You don't obviously need to do it every single day on a car, but you'll check your fuel tank on a car most days when you get into it, or if you're driving it frequently. And it's the same thing with the human body, human brain. Like, we're always using it. There's a lot of things going on in life, and particularly if it's decently stressful times, which life seems to continually get stressful as the state of the world is at the moment. And it's just like having those little moments, whether it be weekly, daily, or every couple of days, or even fortnightly for some people, or monthly, just having like a check-in of like, cool, what's going on? How am I feeling? I felt irritable recently. Why have I felt like that? I felt really happy recently. Why have I felt like that?
I was going to say, it goes both ways.
Yeah, what's actually stacked up to me feeling like this?
Like, why do I feel so good? What have I been doing recently?
Yeah. And then if you are aware of it, then you can probably replicate it. If you can replicate it, you're probably going to have a better quality of life. And like, that's my goal for my clients, is to improve their lives.
Yeah.
And so it's funny, I guess, as we move forward with it, these things are starting to become more normal, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is quite cool.
But it could be like we say that because we're just surrounding ourselves with people who are like that.
True.
So yeah, it's interesting.
Well, as they say, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So get 5 better people that journal.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the main takeaway. So we might wrap up soon, but one last little question. Let's say there's someone out there listening, ready to get started. They want to get into, let's say, strength training, or they want to get into improving their health, get into calisthenics. What advice would you have for them?
Definitely get assessed, because like I was touching on earlier, sometimes people think they're ready for a certain thing when really it's about strengthening up your current things. That's definitely my first one. 2, like, be ready to be patient and for it to just never get easier. Because as you get stronger, things get harder, and it's just a never-ending goal, and that's okay. That's what it is, and it's really important to celebrate all the little wins. So patience, but also celebrating the little things. They're probably the 2 main things that I think are important. Oh, and recover.
Yeah.
You don't have to be doing it every single day.
True.
Especially as a beginner, your joints might not be ready, especially if you're looking to learn a handstand. Your wrists, if you haven't spent any time on them, they might not be ready to be taking your body weight on for every single day. So that's also part of the patient side of things, I think. But be as disciplined with your recovery as you plan to be as disciplined with your training.
Yeah, I like that. Cool. We might end it there. That was really, really good.
Oh, cool. Yay.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, as always. We'll have to organise around 3. Mel's going to be on next week. So I did say the idea of having like
a round table,
on a rectangle table.
Cool.
Be good fun. She's just got to get on and do it first, because she's like putting it off. Like, it'll be fine. It's just questions.
Yeah, it's just a little conversation. I forgot this was a podcast.
Yeah. That's the cool thing as well too. Like, that's what I want to be. We chatted about it before. I want it to be like a conversation, and if people want to listen in, they'll learn something about us. They'll get, some valuable information, but I don't want it to be like an interrogation. And a lot of people that have been on are surprised at the time. We're nearly 2 hours now.
Oh, I didn't even realize. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Good wrap up. Good podcast, Lynn.
We can keep going. I just have a client at 12:15. So
I think that's a good.
Next time.
Don't want it to be Huberman level.
No, we'll get there though. Because I think with podcasts as well, people listen to them in blocks. I know I do.
Yeah.
I'll listen to one for 30 minutes and I'll come back to it, or whatever it might be. Okay. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. That was really, really good.
Thanks. Wow, I didn't realize it had already been 2 hours.